Four new cards just dropped at the beginning of this Marvel Snap season. Let's take a look at the best decks to use all of our new Spider friends in. We're going to start with the Superior Spider-Man, a 3/4 that looks for cards with increased power and gives you 1 energy every turn if you have those cards with increased power. I think many people expected this card to be a little bit underpowered, but he's proving useful in a couple of different shells. I've seen some really interesting things happening with this card that imply that it may be a little stronger than we expected it to be. We're going to start with this list, an ongoing list that uses Superior Spider-Man in order to get some free ramp and has a bunch of naturally occurring green power that will just let it happen. That is the biggest thing that I have noticed about Superior Spider-Man and the decks that he goes in. Decks that are naturally going to have some early green power as opposed to building around it are the cards that are going to, or the decks that are going to want to actually have this card in them. This is not a Hope Summers, which is a much more prescriptive package of cards that have to go in it. This is a throw-in if you feel like you want access to this. And so where this card actually shines is in decks that typically didn't have consistent access to ramp, which is usually going to be decks like this. An ongoing deck can really use some extra energy cheat. Anyone who's played this deck will know that you will often end up in situations where your opponents have played all the cards in their hand, but you, because of the way this deck is built, just a natural curve progression, have not managed to output all of the cards in your hand. Your power output is still going to be pretty reasonable, but you haven't managed to fully realize it. There's a lot of, I wish I could play this 4 and this 3 on the final turn of the game kind of things that just don't happen for you in this deck. And Superior Spider-Man enables that. The big question is this worth doing over, say, playing Anti-Venom, which also similarly enables it, but does have a notable Mobius weakness? That is up for debate. But what I do like about this list is it's a list that has a lot of power when other people are building towards green power in ways that Shadow King can interact with. This list is building towards green power in ways that Shadow King cannot interact with very profitably, and therefore is a much better Shadow King deck. It's the anti-green power deck. And in a world where a lot of people have just started playing a bunch of Spider-Punk move decks, which were already good before Spider-Punk got added into them, and Man-Spider decks, being able to remove green power while having scalers like Iron Man is a pretty good space to be in. Thanos here from Zombies Go Nom Nom is a very solid attempt at doing the exact same thing. In fact, you'll notice this is basically the same premise as the other list. It's just we have this 3/4 in here and we're doing that instead of Wiccan. That's the big adaptation that Superior Spider-Man is allowing this deck to make. It gets the ramp a turn earlier and a lot more consistently. You are very often going to have active Superior Spider-Mans in games where Wiccan would not have been active. All you need are a couple of basic things that allow this to happen. Speed will turn him on. Captain America with an ongoing, Sam Wilson, Goliath. All of your cheap cards basically turn him on. This deck also has a lot more tech built into it, where the previous one is a very much 11 cards of power and synergy and then a Shadow King. This one is leaning on the fact that there are ongoing tech cards that are relevant to the metagame, Mercury chief among them, and of course Mobius and Mobius that allow you to have a proactive development into reactive, or maybe proactive tech would be a right way to describe it. The point is there's more ways to interact with your opponent in this. There's more ways to prevent yourself from getting randomly run over by whatever it is that they are doing. This is a powerful list. It does some very interesting things. The premise is the same, though. What decks want ramp? What decks want ramp as a free roll? And what decks can naturally get the green power that don't necessarily go out of their way to do so? Next up is Man-Spider, a 5/1 on reveal that merges with the previous card played and doubles its power. That is a very notable thing, but the most notable thing about this is it doesn't just say double the power when you merge it with that card. Anytime this merges, it doubles the power. Now, there are a lot of sort of maximalist, let's build all around Man-Spider type of stuff. I'm not entirely convinced by that stuff because it is very face up and wins one lane, and then it's like, all right, what are we doing for lane 2? So there are some open questions about this deck, but it is quite good at making big numbers. The main thing that you'll notice is that there is a notable interaction with Agony. If you have an Agony on the lane you play Man-Spider into, that will merge after the Man-Spider's on reveal effect and double the Man-Spider again. That's something that's really cool and really interesting and really strong, but it does have a bit of one lane syndrome. You can definitely do numbers with this card. The question is largely, how do you transfer those numbers to another lane? How do you win lane number 2? And if you do that, how do you win lane number 2 without getting Shadow Kinged? Because Taskmaster is a really great way to win lane number 2. This is very reminiscent of like a Shuri that you play on the back end instead of a Shuri that you play on 4 into the big guy into Taskmaster. But there's a reason why that stuff hasn't been good. And while this does have a higher ceiling, by a pretty significant margin, I would add, I don't exactly know if that is a long-term vector for success once people start realizing what's going on. This is Big Baby's iteration of Man-Spider. It is fully focused on buffs aplenty, so that in the world where you are Man-Spidering, you're going to be able to count on that card being big enough that you can just go focus on the other lane with some other stuff. You are not a Man-Spider Taskmaster deck. You are trying to say, I'm Man-Spidering on 5, I've won that lane, now I'll go do my whole turn 6 in a different lane. That kind of thing is sort of how it goes. You can also, of course, be Man-Spidering on 6 to redistribute the power that you have. There's a bunch of really powerful things that say double your power, and it's hard to play against these decks if they haven't played the Man-Spider, because they could very easily move something large into the Man-Spider lane. That's the other thing about Man-Spider, by the way. You might think the card says here when you read it. It doesn't say here. That card will eat anything that was most recently played, which means that it effectively cross moves power. You can do a lot of jukes with this card. It's very reminiscent of, remember when I was playing a lot of Ghost Spider with Thing First Steps? It's kind of like that. People don't challenge the lane with the big thing in it. You move the big thing out and then you win the other lane, except in this case, moving it out doubles its power. So you really win the other lane. That is a really potent juke. Like, there's a lot of potential in this Man-Spider stuff. I don't know if it's been figured out, but there is a lot of potential. The more sober-minded Man-Spider gamer might end up playing something that looks a lot more like this. This is, of course, a Scar, Surtur, Sauron deck. Now, previously, Sauron decks had been very tech-heavy. This might come as a surprise to people, but a lot of the stuff like Scar and Surtur kind of wasn't in the list, so we could play Supergiant and a million pieces of tech. I don't know if that is flat better than this. I think that in the long run, it could end up being flat better than this. But what I will tell you is that if you play these two decks against each other, this one wins because it has more power in it. And it gets to Big Brother the very tech-heavy versions of this. I think that's notable. Like, it is a really notable thing. The issue that this deck really pushes to the forefront is an issue of final turn reads. The basic thing this deck is trying to do is play like a normal Sauron deck for 5 turns of the game. Then, on the final turn of the game, they have a 112 Scar and a doubled power Man-Spider. So let's say the last card you played was a Red Skull. Well, now it's 28 power, and you don't know where that 28 power is. And oh, by the way, I have also played a Scar. Oh, did I mention the Red Skull's effect doesn't happen anymore? That's the deal here. That's what the sort of play pattern is. This sort of inbuilt juke. Like, there were already high-level players, specifically I would name check Heart of the Cards here, who were playing things like Ghost Spider in Sauron decks just because it was very nice to have an inbuilt juke. To have an inbuilt juke that also says double the power of a very big guy and remove the downside of a very big guy is very, very strong, and it is a notable addition to this type of Scar deck. On to the Season Pass card, Spider-Punk. You can move this once at 3/3. When it moves to a location, it steals 2 power from the highest power card there. To absolutely nobody's surprise, this is a move card. Look at this incredible deck building. Wow. What an incredible piece of work you've done here, KMBest. You took the 12 cards everyone was already playing, you cut one of those cards, and you put the new card in. I bet this has a really high win rate. Here's the thing, it actually does. The card is actually good. Like, this is a very welcome consistency piece in the big move deck. It is very much appreciated that you have the ability to move this guy around under your own control. He makes a lot of your final turns a lot less complex, and he also is just naturally the highest floor of your guys. You really just kind of want to pump like 2 moves into this guy and then let him do his thing. That's how you can handle him, but you get some free additional stuff out of that, like 2 moves normally, then you move him, and then Heimdall moves him, and you just kind of getting a lot of stuff out of what this guy is able to bring to bear. Now, it's also that he costs 3, right? But it's all, I think the more important 3 for him is that he's the 3rd legitimate payoff in this deck. And this deck is crying out for legitimate payoffs. Vulture is too small to make a difference in most games. This guy is just right. It's not the greatest 3rd payoff we could possibly have, but it's very competitive with Dagger, in my opinion, which is a bit of a knock on it in the sense that it better be if it costs 3. Obviously, Human Torch is a big upgrade over any other card in this entire deck. This is probably the strongest deck in the game, give or take the existence of Mercury. If there's a lot of Mercury, I've seen some theorizing that it might be better to be playing things like Move Bounce, which can at least remove their things from the Mercury lane. I'm unclear how true that is, because this deck just does have a lot more inbuilt size, where it's like, all right, you know, you've Mercuried me, what else are you doing? This deck is able to ask that question fairly reasonably. Move Bounce sometimes is not. It'll kind of depend on how things shake up. But I would consider Move in this form basically to be a clear top contender in this metagame. It's not necessarily because of Spider-Punk. I think we can pretty clearly say that it's because of Human Torch and the other stuff going on here, but I do think he's a pretty useful piece. If you want to play the broken stuff without like feeling too terrible about yourself, if you want to be like a little bit of a hipster, there's this thing that happens when Americans start getting into soccer, which is they don't want to root for like the biggest teams. So they feel bad about that. That's front running, right? So you get this incredible portion of Americans who root for like Arsenal, right? Or Tottenham Hotspur. And like that is a really noticeable thing where it's like, I want to root for someone who's good, but if I root for the best team, I'm a jerk. So I'm just going to root for someone who's like really good, but not the best. And that's kind of the vibe that I get off of this, where it is like, if we're being honest, this is probably a worse version of the move deck, right? But it lets you feel like you're doing something that isn't playing the best deck in the game and making everyone else sad that you're playing the best deck in the game. Look, I'm not doing anything broken. I'm playing Red Wing. I'm a normal, fair gamer. I just play normal Marvel Snap decks. Yeah, it's like really good, but it's like, it's not the best deck. You can't get mad at me for playing on meta when I'm playing Red Wing. Hold on now. That is sort of the vibe I'm picking up here, where it's like, yeah, you can do this. I don't even think it's bad. I think it's really good, probably. The thing is, it's really good because you're playing like 7 of the cards that are in the best deck, and then like 5 cards that are not bad by any means. Like Red Wing, for the record, like people think of that card as a meme card. It's a perfectly serviceable card. It's just not the right time right now. Oh, I'm going to invest in my 20 power Infinite. My opponent has a 70 power Man-Spider. It's just not the right time for it to be good. But if you want to feel better about yourself for playing Move, this is a great option. Last and most definitely least is Web-Sling. Web-Sling right now is mostly seeing play in the context of making your Move deck worse. I can see an argument for it potentially showing up as a 4th spell in a Move Bounce list. I'll probably have to ask Sizer about that. And I generally think that the best use case for this card is you put it in your Zombie Scarlet Witch deck, you put it in your Werewolf by Night deck, you put it in your Hope Summers deck, and it helps clear up the lanes you want to clear up while giving you free triggers on Hope Summers, Zombie Scarlet Witch, and Werewolf by Night. So let's take a look at that. Perhaps the biggest crime against day one deck building I've honestly ever committed. This is a zombie list that is looking to do a bunch of really stupid zombie things. What it's doing is abandoning all tech, abandoning all pretense of interacting with the opponent, and saying, I bet I can fit Werewolf in this deck. I bet I can fit Zombie Giant Man in this deck. I bet I can fit Absorbing Man in this deck. So that means I have something really stupid big in 3 lanes. That's the idea. I bet I can make that happen. And Web-Sling, obviously, like, it's a 1-cost spell. It is almost certainly immediately getting replaced by Deafening Chord in this deck. I cannot stress that enough. This is literally just Deafening Chord placeholder deck. Like, that's what's happening here. That card is getting replaced with a card that actually does stuff. But for now, doing very little and generally working with all the things you do, it's just enough. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I have been KMBest. You have been phenomenal. Check in tomorrow for an OTA review. And then on Friday, I think what we're going to do, this is my plan for the schedule, Thursday OTA, Friday decks for the new meta, Saturday decks from the Golden Gauntlet, Sunday best decks. A lot of decks coming up. I will try to make sure that they are meaningfully different so you are not watching the same thing. I'm just letting y'all know right now, it's about to be decks time. Thank you so much. I've been KMBest. You've been phenomenal. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.